every organization has some sort of advocacy group. And there is one for federal judges. Recently, Biden had vetoed a bill. And because of the cringe dealing with the government, they have all these cringe names for them, and they do all this cringe stuff. And it was called the Judges Act. So the director of the Administrative Office of the United States Courts, they issued a statement because Joe Biden vetoed Senate Bill 4199, the Judicial Understaffing Delays Getting Emergencies Solved Act, also known as the Judges Act. And I hate it when they do this. It's so cringe when they do this stuff. It's so annoying. The Judges Act was vetoed by Biden. It actually passed the House. It was in the Senate, and there was a letter that they published to Biden, and this is it. It's the Administrative Office of the United States Courts. This is kind of like their advocacy group. It's the only way they can really speak. And he says, the Judicial Conference of the United States has recommended enactment of legislation to provide additional federal court judgeships. And this is what it was. It was expanding the judiciary and creating more Article III courts. Because remember, chat, all the federal district courts that exist out there are created through a Judiciary Act. The first Judiciary Act, and it has been amended and kept into effect since then. It's the same thing with the Supreme Court. The Chief Justice is the only constitutionally acknowledged member of the Supreme Court. The Senate and the House tomorrow, along with the president, they could abolish the other 8 associate justices and then reinstitute the court. Like, there's ways you could wipe the court clean and start anew. It's the same way that you can pack the court and add on justices if you wanted to. That can be done by legislative act. For the past 22 years, no additional judgeships have been created. And no comprehensive legislation has been enacted for more than 30 years. And that's a problem. They're admitting, like, we need more judges. We need more stuff. And they say, we need more judges now. The judicial understaffing delays the act is necessary to efficient and effective administration of justice. And notice they're not saying pay us more money. They're like, hire more judges. And they say the most recent judgeship recommendations, it's based on objective caseload data, and it assumes all vacancies are filled. And remember, chat, there are a bunch of vacancies a lot of judicial vacancies are always out there that don't always get filled on time. You know, Trump filled a ton of it. Well, Biden has lately done a ton of it. Obama did a ton of it. But there are a lot of there's a lot of federal judge seats that are open, especially at the district court level. And they said the conference reviewed its process, the work of senior and magistrate judges as well, into its recommendations. And if you remember, there are magistrates who work for the court. They are hired. They work for the judges. And then there's senior judges. We talked about this before, there's senior status when you're a federal judge. You can retire. You have to reach the age of, you have to reach a certain age, and by that point you had to have been a judge for a certain amount of time. You can retire and assume senior status, meaning you get to keep being a federal judge, but you take a reduced workload. So you can kind of like pick and choose what you want to do. Even for district court judges and circuit court judges, you are allowed to do that and receive senior status. You can't do it on the Supreme Court. That's a problem because you get people like Ginsburg who every time there's a drawing of the Supreme Court, what do we always see Ginsburg doing? Sleeping. We see her sleeping every time. And going throughout history, there have been times where people have said, I argued a case in front of the Supreme Court, and half the judges were sleeping. It happens. But they say they would need the additional district court judgeships, and it would spread them out over the next 12 years. The bill passed the Senate with unanimous consent and recently passed the House with bipartisan support. And they say it's critical we get this. And they say it's really important because district court filings have grown by 30% since 1990, when the last bill was enacted. Meanwhile, since 1991, the number of authorized district court judgeships increased by only 4%. And guys, think about it, 30% in more filings. Like, so much more stuff gets filed now. This court has contributed significant delays in resolutions of cases and serious access to justice concerns. And that is a problem. Access to justice is a big deal. Not only can you get a case filed, but can you get it resolved timely? Can you have people who could effectively work on it and devote time and resources to it? These increasing caseloads without an increase in judges is a problem. And they're arguing civil cases, which may take years to get to trial, because remember, criminal stuff is going to take precedence. But civil cases are important. And they say over the past 20 years, the number of civil cases pending longer than 3 years has tripled. And yes, chat, getting through a civil case in a year is going to be quick, but taking more than 3 years, that's a long time. That becomes a long time very quickly. And they say in some of the more inundated courts, the time between filing and disposition is 4 or 5 years, compared to 20 years ago when it was less than 22 months. And these delays increase expenses for civil litigants. It may increase the length of time criminal defendants are held pending trial. Delays lead to lack of respect for, this part here, it's like, okay, suffer. I don't care about this. This leads to lack of respect for the judiciary and loads public confidence in the judicial process. The problem is so severe that litigants may avoid federal court altogether. Well, suffer. I don't care about that. And they point out there's some states where this is a big problem. In some districts, like in Oklahoma, where they had the McGirt Supreme Court decision. Yeah, the Indian treaties were violated. So a lot of things have to get resorted out in federal court regarding tribal land and things that happened in the past 150 years. And there's also questions over the serious crimes committed by Native Americans in tribal lands. And then also white men who committed crimes on tribal lands. There's all kinds of issues. With McGirt. So they say states with existing vacancies still need additional judges. And they say access to justice is a big problem. And now I do think that is a thing. People need more access to justice. Although I laugh when people like Justice Gorsuch or lament about the access to justice. And it's like, buddy, you run a court where like only less than 1% of everybody gets a shot. So, and that's your decision to do that. So even if all open existing vacancies were filled, we would need more judges. And that's the thing. Like, there's still a ton of vacancies, and we haven't got them all filled. And they say the judiciary plays no role in the nomination, confirmation, and appointment process. And they say that's the political branch's job. And he says, in the 25 districts in which judgeships are requested, only 5 of those districts within 3 states have vacancies with no nominees. And they say for the remaining 80% of the districts, there is no evidence to suggest the vacancies are being held open. And they point out the magistrate and senior judges, and there are issues like you have a caseload per authorized judgeship. The number of senior judges and magistrates, there's only so much you can do. The availability of visiting judges, the geographic factors, which might not be a big deal if you live out east, but like if you live in Wyoming, that's a problem, or Montana. The caseload complexity. But yeah, senior judges and magistrates have been critical, but they have limitations. Their assistants cannot be taken care of because senior judges can decline cases, and magistrate judges are not authorized to handle certain types of cases like felonies. So there are limits to what a senior judge can do. Like I said, chat, you can pick and choose what you want when you're a senior judge. You still, and at some point, if you don't take enough, they take your office away, but you still get to pick and choose what you do. But even then, like, to keep your office is actually not a large caseload for an older judge. So like you can do whatever you want there. And they say the last minor the judgeship bill was enacted in 2002. Since then they have kept asking for judges, and this is the director, and this is just them saying like, look guys, we're trying to fix this and you're fucking it up. Why not pass a better act with Trump? Oh, I'm sure they're going to try to push for a better act to get passed with the judges. But in the meantime, like, they had something. It would pass both houses of Congress. All he had to do was sign it. And Biden goes, fuck you guys. Well, I can understand their frustration.